watching Don Shea Boxing Nation.
Can we be done with everybody else but Terence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford?
I mean, that could happen. We got to see how it goes. But, you know, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez.
Look, I want to get to that, but there's always going to be questions until you and Crawford fight. How optimistic, if at all, are you that you can get Crawford in 2021?
I think it could happen. I mean, just for, you know, Al and the Bow to sit down and, you know, for Bow to start lying. So we'll see. But I think it definitely could happen next year. They just got to sit down and talk and, you know, go over numbers and things like that. But it definitely could happen. But like I said, I'm the big dog at the welterweight division, and he gotta take a back seat and take that 60-40 or 7-30, wherever we give him.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So Errol Spence, he surprised a lot of people, a lot of boxing fans, with this interview he did with DAZN. When he said Crawford is going to have to take 60-40, 70-30, or whatever it is we give him. Listen, guys, if you listen to what Errol Spence has been saying about Crawford recently, after the Danny Garcia fight, Terence Crawford, who attended that fight, he was asked by media members, with Terence Crawford being there, does that mean this fight is closer to happening? Errol Spence, he simply said, nope. He said, I don't even know why he was here. I wouldn't show up at none of his fights. Then there was another moment where Errol Spence said, I want Terence Crawford to keep his word and keep my name out of his mouth. Stop talking about me. Like I had told you guys in previous videos, it was pretty much like he was saying, I want Terence Crawford to stop wanting the Errol Spence fight. And now Errol is saying that he has to take 60-40, 70-30, or whatever we give him. That was huge, guys. That says a lot. That goes beyond telling us that Errol Spence has no interest at all in the Terence Crawford fight. Now, even though this is the biggest fight in boxing right now, this is the fight we all want to see, there is one way that Errol Spence could make up for not fighting Terence Crawford, and that's if he really does move up to 160 and beat Canelo Alvarez. Regardless of how biased they are, the fact that you have some people actually calling Canelo Alvarez pound for pound the best fighter in the world, that alone would be a bigger win for Errol Spence if he were to jump up 2 weight classes and beat Canelo. Because if you ask the majority of fans right now, even Errol Spence fans, they don't think Errol Spence has a chance because it's too much of a size disparity with someone as skilled and as big as Canelo Alvarez, someone who probably rehydrates all the way up to like 200 pounds now that he fights at 168. This is what would make Errol Spence beating Canelo Alvarez a bigger win than him beating Terence Crawford. See, by way of contrast, when it comes to Canelo Alvarez's situation, you guys have heard me say this before. I told you when it comes to Canelo avoiding multiple fighters, multiple dangerous fighters, I said it would be different if, let's say, Canelo was aggressively going after Charlo, but he didn't want to fight Andre, or vice versa. And then he ended up beating one of them, right? Let's say he never ended up fighting one of them. Then he moved up to 168, fought David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, unified all of the belts. It would not look that bad because it was only one guy that he didn't fight. But he fought other fighters that were just as dangerous, had styles that were similar. Then it wouldn't look that bad. But in Canelo Alvarez's situation, he's avoiding all of the best undefeated black fighters, all of the best undefeated Mexican fighters, unless those undefeated fighters are welterweights. So you got Canelo Alvarez. He's not going to fight David Benavidez. He's not going to fight Andre. He's not going to fight Charlo. But he's willing to fight all of the white champions. You got Teofimo Lopez. Doesn't want to fight Tank Davis. doesn't want to fight Devin Haney, but we already know he's going to end up fighting George Kambosos next, and then after that, he'll most likely fight Josh Taylor after Josh Taylor completely destroys Ramirez. Now, let me just make this clear. When it comes to Josh Taylor, because of his accomplishments, because of his resume, that is a very, very difficult, tough fight for Teofimo Lopez. I even think the Kambosos fight is going to be a lot more competitive than what a lot of people are thinking. Every time I say that, people say, oh, Dante, you're crazy. He has no chance. I think that fight might surprisingly be competitive. But the point is, it's all about what Teofimo Lopez sees in these fighters versus what he sees in a Tank Davis or a Devin Haney. Remember, Teo, he sparred with both of these fighters. He sparred with Tank. He sparred with Devin Haney. And when it comes to Tank Davis, at first, as predicted, I told you guys, Floyd Mayweather, he made a mistake by talking about the A side to the public, because what if Teo never wanted the fight? He can just keep saying he's the A side and he knows that the fight will never happen. Now, more recently, Teo's father just came out and he's not even using the A side excuse anymore. He just came out and he just said that fight makes no sense. He said the Tank Davis fight, it makes no sense. He was basically saying the fight is pointless. And this is after Teofimo Lopez's own fans. Teo did a poll asking who he should fight next, and the majority of his fans said he should fight Tank. But yet now, Teo Sr. is saying the fight makes no sense. Okay? And then we already know the Devin situation. Teo and his dad, they just said they'll fight him for $10 million after they had just said before that, we're not going to fight him for 3 to 5 years. So let me get back to the comparison to Errol Spence. The comparison I was making is the difference from Teo and Canelo versus Errol Spence is Errol Spence is going after what a lot of you guys would say is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, Canelo Alvarez. Errol is not only willing to fight him, but he's willing to move up 2 weight classes where he would be at an enormous disadvantage physically. Now just imagine if Jermall Charlo was naturally a light heavyweight. He was the light heavyweight champion. He's the same Jermall Charlo, but he's a light heavyweight. Imagine Canelo Alvarez, he avoids Demetrius Andrade and he says, you know what? I want to move up to 175 and fight Charlo. That's almost as equivalent as what Errol Spence is attempting to do. The only difference is Charlo is not, no one is calling Charlo pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Some people are calling Canelo Alvarez that. Now, we already know if Errol Spence was fighting at 147, right? And let's just say hypothetically, he never fought Sean Porter and they were undefeated. Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Terence Crawford, they're all calling out Errol Spence, and they've been calling him out for quite some time, right? And Errol Spence decides, I'm not going to fight any of those guys. He's going to move up to 154. Let's say hypothetically, all of the champions at 154 are all the champions that are at 168. So all the champions at 154, you got what's his name? You got Caleb Smith. You got Caleb Plant. You got Avni Yildirim, who you can fight for a vacant belt, right? You got Billy Joe Saunders. How do you think he would be perceived? How do you think it would look if he didn't fight an undefeated Terence Crawford, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, but he moves to 154 and fights Billy Joe Saunders, Plant, Smith, Yildirim, and they would be calling Errol Spence the biggest cherry picker in the sport of boxing. They would be calling him a quote-unquote businessman, etc., etc. But that's not what Errol Spence is trying to do. Errol Spence is willing to fight the guy that a lot of you guys are saying is pound for pound, #1, the best fighter in the world. And he's willing to fight him at a complete disadvantage. Canelo is not willing to do something like that. So we'll see what happens. A lot of people, they look at fights like Errol Spence against Mikey Garcia. When he fought against Mikey Garcia, it was almost the same scenario. You got the much naturally bigger guy in Errol Spence, and you got the smaller guy in Mikey Garcia. The difference in that fight was not only was Errol Spence a bigger fighter than Mikey Garcia, but he was also a better boxer. You have to be the better boxer if you're smaller than the much naturally bigger guy. You can't go up to a higher weight class and not only, not have the power to match his, but not even have the boxing IQ to match his. Errol Spence, he outboxed Mikey Garcia and attempted to walk him down, but because Mikey Garcia's defense was so on point, where a lot of those shots were bouncing off of his gloves. He did get hurt to the body, I think maybe once or twice, but a lot of the shots to the head were all bouncing off of his gloves. So that's why he didn't get knocked out. That's why he survived the 12 rounds. But he was outboxed for the most part by Errol Spence. That is the difference. When Errol Spence goes up and he fights against Canelo Alvarez, Canelo is a good boxer, but I believe Errol Spence is a better boxer than Canelo Alvarez. That's why Spence versus Canelo, I believe, will be more similar to Shane Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya. Shane Mosley moved up 2 weight classes to fight Oscar De La Hoya. Same scenario. Oscar De La Hoya, he was a good boxer. Shane Mosley was a better boxer. But Oscar De La Hoya was naturally bigger, and he tried to impose his size on Shane Mosley during the fight. So I'll close out with saying this. The only way Errol Spence is going to be able to make up for not fighting Terence Crawford is if he does fight Canelo Alvarez. But another problem Errol Spence is going to have is Canelo already said, now Canelo, he's interested in the Errol Spence fight, but he said he's not willing to take it until he unifies all the belts at 168. So for the meantime, who is Errol Spence going to fight? If Errol Spence has to fight another 3-4 opponents, it's going to be very hard to justify him not fighting Terence Crawford unless he plans on moving up to 154 after his next fight. And he starts winning titles up there, which will obviously prepare him for a fight against Canelo Alvarez at 160. Let's see how it all plays out. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Listen, I'm telling you guys right now, in the world that we live in today, one of the most important things in life to have is a good lawyer. And I can vouch for this one right here, because this brother is my personal lawyer. So if you need any type of legal representation, if you need legal advice, if you're having problems on YouTube, on your regular job, or whatever it is, contact lawyer, mediator, and business consultant Issa Israel's law firm. I've been knowing this man for a while, and he has been a true blessing to me. I'm telling you, he's affordable, he will work with you, but most importantly, he's not going to just treat you like a customer. He will have your best interest. So to get in contact with him, go to iilawfirm.com or consultsglobal.com. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called LO Dekey Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to lodekey.com. Like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So if you want to get this hookup for my brothers out there in the UK and Europe, make sure you check out the Scalp This on Instagram. And for my brothers out there in the States, make sure you go ahead and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.